listeners. Do you dream of stepping onto the TEDx stage and sharing your ideas with the world? Well, now is your chance. I'm excited to announce the TEDx Quest Challenge. It's a 5-day journey designed to help you craft your TEDx talk and land your dream speaking gig in 2025. Starting on January the 13th, each day we'll release a new podcast episode packed with actionable insights to guide you from idea to application. Plus, there's bonus tools to support you and your journey. So you get access to the TEDx speaker readiness checklist, a pitch template, and even a live Q&A with me. So if you're ready to make your dream a reality, sign up now using the link in the show notes and join the TEDx Quest Challenge. Let's get you one step closer to the TEDx stage. Welcome to the Words That Change Lives podcast, helping leaders, coaches, and small business owners to 10 times the impact of their message. Join us as we delve into the art of powerful language, enabling you to speak with unwavering honesty, communicate authentically, and create a lasting impression with every word.
Have you ever been part of a work initiative when maybe you worked in the corporate world, or you are currently in the corporate world and a wellness guru has come in to deliver a talk or some type of initiative that forces you to either get up out of your chair or look inward, gasp at your navel and start gazing and get all in your feels? Well, I know that even though the wellness revolution is in full swing and that organizations more and more are embracing this as, preventative, fundamental part of their structure and culture. However, when it comes to delivering wellness keynotes, and if you are in the wellness space as a speaker, you might find it as hard industry or a thing to get into in terms of delivering corporate talks, or carving yourself out as a credible, unique wellness speaker in your niche. Well, this episode explores if wellness keynotes really do still work. Do we need them? Are they important within organizations, and why they actually are and how they are so beneficial? They really are. And the person that I am speaking to about this really interesting topic is Sarah Hunt. So Sarah is a former client of mine. She is a hugely beautiful, unique personality, and really uses her unique approach and her unique story and message to deliver wellness keynotes and initiatives into corporate environments and conference events. So she's a wellness expert. She's got 15 years experience of delivering these types of things, and she's dedicated to creating the ultimate conference experience. Her signature wellbeing series ensures that delegates remain inspired, rejuvenated, and focused throughout the event, an often overlooked element that transforms an event into a success. She's known for her light-hearted, accessible, and uplifting approach, which I absolutely, completely agree with. And she's celebrated for her meaningful impact on the events industry, making conferences more memorable for everyone involved. And it's not just about that. This conversation is about so much more than that. It's also a little bit of a mindset wellness session for you as well, the listener. So I hope you enjoy this, sink into this, take a deep breath, and listen to my conversation with Sarah Hunt. So, Sarah, in the world that I work in the predominantly the corporate world, obviously I work within the consumer world as well, I see a lot of need for wellness initiatives. And I know that those wellness initiatives are increasing. We have well-being leads in organizations at the moment. We have many, many different projects and things where wellness is on the agenda now. However, in instances where I see there's a need, or maybe there's an event that could really benefit, I do see a little bit of resistance to wellness keynotes, wellness talks, and things like that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, generally, I think that people are still a little bit skeptical of the wellness industry. and they think maybe I'm not zen enough to be in wellness, or it doesn't suit me, or I'm in the corporate world, therefore wellness is kind of that hippy dippy stuff. But what I do is I draw it in so that it links really well and it keeps people energized throughout their day at the conference. So it's essential. It's like plugging in your device when it starts to go to the lower percentage numbers. And so it is so essential, but people are still a little bit skeptical. They think, oh, I can't go to, it's like going to a yoga studio, and there's the Zen music playing and the waterfall, and they come in and they think, oh, I've just, been in a meeting all day. I don't suit this world. So therefore I'll retract a little bit. So I
Yeah.
think people are still a little bit like pulling away from it, but I think it's changing slowly.
Yeah. Because I've actually experienced this with you in terms of actually doing a corporate kind of wellness thing in the north of England, and actually quite a lot of people turned up, didn't they,
Yeah,
to that session that we did. And I think there are people who embrace this type of thing, and then there's people that are slightly more reticent. And I think you've made a good point there in this perceived spiritualized woo woo type of label that wellness has, when actually it's pretty scientific in terms of its benefits and its need as a baseline environmental support for people in their day to day, but also when we think about team away days, when we think about conferences, when we think about days that departments are having where they're focusing on business stuff, but they really need to be shifting their mindset around things that to do with their mental and physical health, right?
definitely.
Yeah, and how important that is. And when we talk about, when I say wellness keynote, yes, that's one option. But as you say, it doesn't have to just look, we'll talk about the wellness keynote in a minute, but it doesn't have to just look like you turn up and you give an hour long talk on wellness. Give us some more of a flavor of what sort of, how that can look in an event and how it can be sort of broken up.
Well, I started off by just doing wellness keynotes. And now what I realize is that people need constant top ups, like I was saying, plugging in the device. So it's fine to do a rejuvenating keynote in the middle of the day, but then what happens 2 hours later after they've been listening to constant PowerPoint presentations? Networking conferences, let's admit, they can be very draining. Lack of fresh air, lack of windows, lack of just being at home. And, you start to feel like you're being pulled away. You're often sleeping in a hotel. And it's just a lot of people and a lot of situations that we wouldn't normally have. So then the company or the conference that is holding everybody there expects to suddenly have you absorb every little bit of information. It expects you to be on top form, make these connections, and suddenly people are drained. They often start feeling quite anxious, maybe a little bit nervous, a little bit overwhelmed, depleted, and therefore all the work of the conference that has gone into it, it's kind of gone out the window because people aren't, if they're not at 100% themselves, or at least even 80, it's not going to be, they're not going to be taking in the information. They're not going to be the best version of themselves. So what I tend to do is I do little top ups throughout the day. So the model I'm moving more towards is I'm there for the day with the conference, almost like an MC, but a wellness MC.
Okay.
So I have a conference wellness menu, almost like when you go open up, you go to a hotel and you see a room service menu or, a spa menu, and you can just pick and grab. It's included anything throughout the day you can choose. I work with the conference organizers to help design the best conference. So I'll look and say, oh, you've got 4 PowerPoint presentations in a row. That's not going to work. I'm going to come in. Usually the resistance is time. We don't have any time. It's completely packed. So now my little tiny mini conference wellness sessions have gone from 10 minutes down to sometimes 2. So an example of it would be, say, like a morning energizer. I'll come on the stage before most times people don't know I'm coming, because if they, if a wellness thing is optional, people just don't come.
They
Or
don't.
three people come because
Yeah.
everyone's been out the night before. And the only people who come are the people who already do yoga or maybe already are into wellness. So what I do is I come on the stage and right away I get a lot of kind of, who's this girl? Who's this girl? And I'll have music and upbeat things, and I'll just get them to do things like lift their arms in the air. I don't even say it's yoga. Shake your arms, shake out your body, sit up really tall, take some deep breaths. And I maybe just do anywhere between 2 and 10 minutes of that. So then they're energized and they're ready to go and they're ready to absorb the information. And then I might, 2 hours later come in for like a 3-minute breathing session that just helps people calm down. Maybe after a coffee break when the energy is quite high, people are coming back from the room and they're not focused. I'll do that. Maybe then a half-hour energizing talk with movement as well. And then maybe something at the end of the day. What I start doing now is ones that are optional. So if it's like a mid-afternoon coffee break and people are feeling like they don't want to interact at the moment, it's optional to stay in the room, and I'll do a guided relaxation to recharge them for the rest of the day, maybe before they go out to the drinks and dinner or the networking. So it's changing a lot.
Yeah, so that's really interesting because I see the benefit and the purpose of that approach in terms of providing a break in the day to re-energize, to regroup, to recenter, to provide a welcome change from all of the maybe quite dry presentations. And of course, I help people to change those sorts of things so they don't deliver dry presentations. But still, when you're listening all day at a conference, this type of wellness injection is definitely welcome. I think there is also still a place for the wellness keynote, which is different because, and we'll talk about your wellness keynote in a second, it's not just about re energizing the room, it's actually about shifting mindsets towards long-term health benefits, right? It's shifting mindsets towards people taking ownership of their health and wellness from a mental and physical perspective. And I know that there's 3 areas in your wellness keynote, and we'll talk about that in a second, but that's sort of much more sort of big picture, whole perspective, and doesn't just look at the sort of transactional wellness elements that are designed to provide a pep or a bit of fire or energizing into sort of section in a day. A wellness keynote is there to actually shift thinking as well as provide education and energy. Would you say?
Exactly. And there is something, once people are in the keynote, usually my keynote's about 45 minutes. And you know what it's like. It's a story. You're being moved. It's a whole huge thing. It's much different than just, coming on for 2 minutes because I do many different techniques throughout it and by the end of it, it's like they've kind of, one man said to me, he said, I feel like I was just in a storm. And now it's the calm after the storm. That kind of, after a storm, there's a sense of transformation and there's a bit of a shift. And that's what I do. I kind of imagine that I'm pulling people in different directions. And once 5 minutes or 10 minutes even has passed, usually if you do it properly, you've got them. You've got their attention. And like you said, it's not just about energizing the room. I want people to leave a conference and remember their shift more than, well, just as much as the information they took on. I want them to go back to their family life, their home life, wherever they are, and be completely shifted in a really good way. Where
Yeah.
they've had a shift in perspective. They've used these techniques to, well, I can come alive. Or maybe I was sleepwalking through life.
Yeah, there we go. Right. So let's talk about that because I think that's what makes a keynote, right? Whether you're in wellness, business, whatever. It's that shifting of perspective. It's that disturbing your thinking. And one thing that really hinges on is the core message of the talk. Now, I've been lucky enough to work with you to develop your wellness keynote. And there's some very strong messages coming through that particular talk. Let's explore that because one thing you just mentioned there was somebody actual feedback from a talk you've given said that they felt like, they were kind of sleepwalking and then, they weren't. And that's kind of part of the message of your talk, isn't it? Let's just explore that for people listening because I think for anybody wanting to put a keynote talk together, it's a really good example of how you built a keynote with all of your expertise and all the stuff we're going to talk about in terms of what you put in it around this message.
So my core message is how to find joy amongst the marvelously mundane middle.
I love that.
So, we all have the dishes, the traffic, the errand, the worries, the weather, all that kind of stuff, the mundane stuff. And naturally that pulls us down. And in my wellness career, I've been in the wellness world for 15 years. I've worked a lot with people, sadly, at the end of their lives, whether it's at hospices or people who sadly have a early diagnosed disease, or they're just older. And I've worked with a lot of clients that I've been lucky enough to do private work with people who are, in their 80s and 90s. And the hindsight that they have and the perspective they have is just incredible. And regardless of the various walks of life that everybody comes from, all the advice is very similar. Slow down, take time to be more happy, stop stressing, do the things that bring you joy. And then again, we don't. Why? Well, because of the worry, the weather, it's just the traffic, and it goes on and on and on, that same thing. So my whole core message is to pull yourself out of it and give yourself the gift of hindsight now. Give yourself that shift in perspective. And it could be, if today is my last day, or that sometimes sounds a bit dark. So what I'm starting to do is pretend the day that you chose today, the mindset that you have to keep that for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So that's a bit more positive. It's not like, oh gosh, my world is ending tonight. It's more like, okay, if you pick it today, what would you shift? It's like, would you get that mad about, the coffee that you just spilled on your top, whatever it is, that's the law of attraction. Or you wake up, you stub your toe, you spill the coffee, then you're late for the bus, then it just goes on and on. And the problem with that is that brings us down and down. And then we're worse off to people around us, our colleagues, our family members, whoever it is. We end up being, quite rude to them sometimes. If you're just late for a bus and you spilled something on yourself, and then it's that pay it forward thing. Well, if somebody takes your seat on the bus, then you're angry, and then they are angry, and it goes on and on. It's like, let's shift it, because if you've woken up and given yourself a few deep breaths in the morning, that's a really great gift to give yourself, because it energizes the body, it wakes up the mind. Maybe shaking your body a little bit, hung upside down, whatever you need to do, you've set yourself up into a state of success already. And then, those states where you're really happy, you don't even know why, you're just like that beginning stage, you wake up and you're like, wow, everything just feels really good. You're walking on air, everything feels great. And therefore, then to pay it forward, people feel that, and then it moves on and on. So then the world becomes a better place, because you've done that to yourself. You've topped yourself up with this internal, just everlasting stuff that is there, that then brings you joy. Because if we do take a deep breath, we will start to feel happier. It's that simple. The nervous system goes, everything feels okay. But we all just breathe with this top tiny percentage of our lungs, and therefore it creates a stress response, an anxiety response, and then it just escalates. But they don't teach it in school.
Shall we do it?
Yes, let's do it. Let's do it right now. So let's close. Well, if you're walking listening to this, do not close your eyes. If you're on the tube, you can. So if you're walking, you can just keep walking. If you're sitting, you can close your eyes. We're just going to take an inhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. Pause for 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. And then pause. Now we're going to inhale through the nose. If you didn't the last time, inhale for your own count through the nose. Fill up your lungs, fill up your cells, feel the energy moving through your body. Pause and hold. Feel yourself filling up with that fresh new energy, and then sigh out through the mouth. Go, ah. When you sigh out, it releases stress. It clears out stagnant energy. Pause. Good. And then either open your eyes. If you're still walking, just keep that breath. Now try to keep those breathing techniques for the rest of listening to this podcast. We always forget, because the breath is one of the few things that we can do consciously or unconsciously. The body has a lot to do, so it's going to breathe unconsciously. You can train yourself to breathe consciously.
You can, and I will
Yeah.
say I never fully got this until about a year ago. Now that sounds really shocking, but I never fully understood the benefits of this until about a year ago, when I started to have challenges. It was actually a year ago, because it was this week that my daughter started secondary school, and she had a lot of challenges, and she ended up not being at school for many, many months. And I learned I was doing like real deep inhales and exhales to, I don't know, just help me get through the day.
Mhm.
And it massively helped me, and I still do it now. I still do it now. So it's weird. I think some people are like, oh, breath work.
It's this again, that hippy dippy stuff. It's
I
just,
don't get
woo
it.
woo. Yeah.
Like meditation, a lot of people, they can't get on board with it. Their brains are too busy. It's hard, right? But breathing, and as you say, it sounds so simple, but there's so much science behind it. There's so much
Yeah.
biology behind just breathing and taking control through. That's just one tiny element of this. There's three main sort of chunks, areas to your wellness keynote. Are you able to share what
Yeah.
those are?
So luckily they all start with the same letter, so they're easy to remember.
Alliteration, everybody.
Breath, which we just did, body, and brain. Brain is essentially mindset. So it's, change what I give people is these three tools, which we can go into it more. And they basically are creating their holistic toolkit. So that imagine this little, toolkit on your shoulder when you need it. If you're starting to feel stressed, right before you open up an email, right before you have to do a difficult conversation, or just if you're feeling anxious for no reason, you right away go BBB. Okay, can I move my body? No, maybe you're on a conference call. That's why breath is perfect. Breath is the one that you can always do. Mindset. How can I shift this? How can I think of something different? How can I visualize it to a way that I want it to be? How can I maybe ask a different question? Often we ask questions that are quite down. Why does life always do this to me? That's not a powerful question. It's like, how can I shift something? But breath is the easiest one. Body is another one. Anything, and it can be done in a chair, like rolling your shoulders, lifting your arms up over the sky. When you change your physiology, it has a dramatic effect on how you feel. The more you move, the more you feel, the more alive you feel. The less you move, the less you feel, the less
Yeah,
alive you feel. And
yeah.
look, we're filming this podcast in September right now, when everyone in the world is going back to school. And when I had to sit at a desk from 6 onwards, I hated it. It didn't feel natural, because it's not natural to sit for long periods of time. Hunter-gatherer days, we were meant to move. Moving created motion. It gets everybody moving. The body moves. The mind flows. Everything feels calm when you're moving continuously. Now, 40 hours a week, not including, transit to get to work, or, other times we're sitting. I'm like, why do I feel down? Well, because the body isn't shaken up at all. So it's like simple little things throughout. That's what I do throughout my keynote. I'll talk for a little bit, do a little bit of breathing techniques. I'll talk for a little bit more. Time to move, time to stand up. I never get people to look around and talk to each other, because I like it to be all encompassing
Yeah.
within themselves. And I think sometimes that's kind of going back to, why are people resistant? I've been to wellness sessions before. Turn to the person beside you and tell them, I do not like that. Nobody wants to. I mean, I'm quite extrovert myself, and I don't even like doing that. Or get in a group of 4 and let's all do an exercise. I want this to be something that is just within them,
Mhm.
and they are learning this for themselves. It's like going back to school, like in a way that what school didn't teach you. School didn't teach us how to deal with money, the psychology of that. Didn't teach us about emotions. These emotions are just passing through us. And a lot of my guided relaxations, what I'll do is I'll get people to explore their emotions. I'll mix the body and the breath and the brain. I'll say, okay, shake your arms, take some deep breaths, now pause. And now I want you to conjure up some of your greatest hits. That's how I often start it. Close your eyes, start with some greatest hits. So right away, people start to feel the feelings that those emotions bring through in your body. So it's like, oh, I'm elated. It's like, where do you feel in your body? Oh, it might feel, some people feel in their heart, their belly, their head, whatever it is, you start to almost feel tingly, especially when you're doing deep breaths with movement, and then I'll say, okay, now, like not right then, but I'll often say, okay, now think of something that causes you stress. What happens to your body? The shoulders go down, the head goes down. You start to maybe feel a little bit of anxiousness in the chest or the throat. That's how we are most of the time, because our mind gets the better of us. It's like we have a 2 million-year-old brain, and it hasn't evolved that much. So it's meant to keep us alive, not happy. So what does it do? It scans for problems. We've got this little antenna looking for problems. So what happens when things are going well in our life for a little bit? And then it's like, yeah, but what about that? That's there to protect us, but we don't understand that, because again, we're not taught it. So I think of my keynote now as a little back to school, that for the real important things that we need to deal with, to learn how to deal with ourselves, our emotions, the people around us, life, because it can get confusing, and we just think, gosh, everybody else has it figured out, but I don't. It's like everyone's in the same boat.
Yeah, and also particularly in the corporate world, like, you know, I sort of scan both environments all the time. So, like, you know, in the consumer industry, where you have like events, consumer events, you know, conferences, things like that, you've got people who are pretty dialed into their personal development. They're very, you know, they're very sort of tuned in to health and wellness and all those sorts of things. But when you move into the corporate world, yes, of course, people are, but in the day-to-day stress of the office environment, especially in recent times, I'm seeing a lot more pressure. I'm seeing a lot more stress. I'm seeing a lot more lack of work-life balance. I've just actually taken a whole group of people through a leadership program, and that was something that really came up. I mean, you know, it always does, but it's quite prevalent at the moment. It's so important to to have this on the agenda within your corporate initiatives, within your corporate events. And I really like the fact that you said, because you know, when I'm helping people create their keynotes, there is always an element of interaction with a keynote. Within a 45-minute keynote, there has to be an element of interaction, engagement with the audience. Sometimes that does work by turning to the person next to you and talking about something. In your instance, no, it's about that one person experience and that personal shift that they're going to achieve. I also want to talk about what makes you unique in this space, because everybody is unique. Everybody has their own USP and their own kind of expert method. You've got the way that you're presenting this based on your experience, but your story also plays into how you deliver wellness, because it's not traditional. And I think that's really important. So just tell us a little bit about your story, because that does feature in your keynote, and that does come through in the other work you do, which we're going to talk about in a moment.
Well, yeah, I remember when I first met you, I came to your house shortly after lockdown was finished for a little bit, and we had our one-to-one intensive. And I dropped in what I'm about to tell you. I brought you what I thought was a keynote, and you basically explained to me it was great. It was like a presentation, but this is what makes a keynote. And then we started going into it, and I think I happened to just on the side say I was doing something called disco yoga the week before, and you went, what? We both put down our coffees and teas. And you said, wait, tell me a little bit more. And I thought you were just asking because you were curious. And you said, this has to be in the keynote. I went, what? But it's not wellness enough. And you said, no, that is what makes you unique. So yeah, about 15 years ago, I became a yoga teacher. And when I was in Canada, I don't know if you can tell my accent and anybody who's listening, but I moved to the UK about 15 years ago. I'm a newly qualified holistic nutritionist and yoga teacher. And I started working in studios and wellness centers. And it went well, but I just feel like I didn't really fit in. I was feeling that kind of, again, that holier than thou wellness kind of, stereotype one, and I'd walk into the studio, the yoga studio, feeling, slightly guilty that I've been having pizza and wine the night before, listening to disco music or whatever it is. And, I found myself trying to, there was two versions of myself. There's like on the mat Sarah and off the mat Sarah. And I really wanted to blend the two. And I think one day a studio manager didn't get me in trouble, but said, I heard you play this song in the studio for the yoga class. And, it's just, I know some people really liked it. It's just not the image I want to portray, And I went, okay, I get it. Yep. And I went home and I wrote down, it's about 2014, I wrote down, I'm going to create, I didn't know what it was yet, but a brand new yoga phenomenon that's, you're allowed to have fun, you're allowed to play music, you're allowed to experience joy, and you're allowed to, have a coffee or a wine or whatever you want after. It doesn't matter, you don't have to be eat a certain type of diet to do this. So I went to a yoga studio, or rented a little tiny place, had my friends there, and I plugged in my phone into little small speakers. And what happened, and I would play upbeat music. And one time at the end of the Spotify list, I didn't make it long enough. They suggested songs, and a disco song came on by mistake. And I went to change it. Everybody said, no, leave it. It really works. So we jokingly did some disco moves to it. And then afterwards, because I didn't have a name for the class yet, I said, so what is this now called? Disco yoga? And everybody said, yeah, that really works. So I did disco yoga for a while just on my own. And then a year or two later, I met my now business partner. She's the DJ. And we said, let's do a partnership and let's make this really big. So, we got it trademarked and registered, and we made it big. Got the logo, the website, we're suddenly at festivals doing big events, catsuits, glitter, all of that. And we made it different. It's still regular yoga. People are still quite shocked. They go, you know what? I still had a really good workout. I still feel really zen, but there's a lot of fun integrated throughout it. So that's now been 10 years, and we've done one together, you and I. We've
Yes.
been, yeah, and it's lots of fun. We do, Hindu's corporate events. We do, festivals. We're in main stages of festivals, because obviously when the headliners aren't on yet or acts throughout the day, they need to fill the stage. And rather than just staring at somebody who's just up and coming, we bring people together. This year at Latitude, we had about 1,000 people in the crowd. And, we start off slow and chilled and nobody knows what's coming. And then we start to work our way up, and it's classic 70s and 80s disco. And in no time, there's, confetti cannons going off, and people are having a mass dance party and jumping around with strangers. And, and again, body, breath, brain. Then towards the end, they're breathing and moving the whole time. Throughout the end, I do the guided relaxation that helps to kind of, because a meditation, as you said, is too tricky. If you just lie there and don't know what to think about or sit there, it's too much. But so the guided relaxation when you're new is really helps. It's like, okay, relax your body, relax your legs, relax your ankles, and your brain goes, okay. Eventually, if I listen to this, I don't have to listen to my own thoughts. So that's disco yoga.
I just obviously love the concept of disco yoga. I do really feel like it is the essence of you. Obviously, there's so much more to you than that in terms of your huge expertise around wellness and the science behind it, the biology behind it, the mindset around it. However, to encapsulate you as a person, and this message around finding joy in the everyday, and not being the perfect puritanical wellness person. You don't need to be well. The fact that, and so I've been lucky enough to experience this twice. I have DJ'd, I have been the DJ, and you have led a session. One was like a private event for a Hindu, which was so cool. And so I've actually seen you in action, and then the other was a corporate one. And so the private one, was just absolutely fantastic. It was in this lovely house, wasn't it, in Rottingdean? And the way that you were leading this group of women, I mean, it was fun, it was energetic, it was joyful, and it was energy fueled, and it was just setting them up for their whole weekend. And then the corporate one was at Christmas, and there was a whole day of events, and we did 2 sessions, didn't we, where people could come in, and there was really, really great turnout, and someone came with like a disco ball helmet.
Yes, I forgot about that.
I mean, it was just amazing to be part of that, but also to see what you bring, because you have a fantastic stage presence. You really do. And I think seeing you actually at Latitude, the videos of you at Latitude with all of those people, those so many, do you say it's about 1,000 people, and you're leading on the stage, the DJ's playing, and you could see that crowd were absolutely loving it. Imagine, like, you're going to a music event, and then you come to something like that, and then you carry on with it's such a cool concept and just brilliant. And you look fantastic, all of you, in the really cool leotards and the glitter, as you say. And I just think it absolutely, because we love dance music,
Yeah,
we connected over our love of dance music and things like that. But it's a fantastic mantra to live by, and I see that permeating through the messages that you deliver in all of the work that you do. And that's what makes someone unique. And I'm sharing this for anybody listening who's like, how do I do that for myself? Well, you need to really harness that unique message, that core message, that thought leader messages that are unique to you and your story and your outlook. And Sarah is a really good example of someone who, in a wellness niche where there's lots of wellness coaches, there are loads of them, you have really carved out your own unique voice, which is beautiful and is a really great example of somebody who has delivered thought leader messages that are very specific to your own story. And it was really good that you were able to share your story there, because then, people can think, well, what's my story? So where am I coming from with this? So I guess you said things are changing slightly in terms of the needs, the approaches are changing. What do you really enjoy doing, and where do you sort of see things going for yourself, maybe, like over the next year in terms of following your own joy with this type of thing?
Well, I really love, they talk about, the zone of genius. And I love being at conferences. I just love it. Like, I do still go into offices and people say, we want you for a lunch and learn. But the energy that people have when they're away from their regular day to day life, their work day, they didn't take the same route into work, or they're not sitting at home in front of their own laptop. When people go to a conference, again, something shifts. They're and they have a little, whether they're in the same city they live in or they've flown somewhere and they're somewhere else, it's kind of a chance to become a different person just for that time, slightly different. You might be whether you've just flown a little bit or you've taken a train, you're out of your day-to-day life, and then therefore the sleepwalking stops right there. That's started it with it unintentionally. That's kind of shifted that. And then, so I love being at a conference. I love when people are arriving. I love giving the lanyard. I just love all of it. And what I like to do is be there for the whole day, like I said. But what I like to do mostly is I'm there. So I tell people at the beginning of the day, when I'm hired for the day, yes, I'll be on the stage some of the day. But whenever I'm not on the stage, I am there as your one-to-one wellness coach, whether it's physical or mental stuff. So it could be, whenever you see me, if you see me around, come up and talk to me. So somebody will say, it's like a little mini private yoga session. I'm experiencing a lot of neck pain here. I had an injury here. I'll give them some techniques. Or if they say, what, usually people whisper, like, I get really anxious on a Monday morning. And I'm like, don't worry, everybody does. And then we'll talk about some based, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever time everybody has, give them some time to just talk about what their issues are. So that's my new thing. So it's kind of like the keynote, the little mini sessions, but then also that one-to-one coach who's there.
Open surgery type thing, sort
Open
of.
surgery, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I run surgeries in the corporate world where people can, like, drop in and, like, talk to me about a particular issue, but it's like a boundaried sort of thing. So it's like, this is the space for that type of thing.
Yes, yeah, and that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to do more. I'm just realizing more and more that I want to be at conference. I want to be at conferences. I want to be at events, like things away from the workplace. Probably bare minimum, like unless they could still be at the workplace, but as long as everybody's away from the desk, I'm done with the lunch and learns where they're like, no, it's okay. This is where it's going to be. The phones are still ringing. People are looking at their computer. It's
Yeah,
like,
that's
no, you've
not
got to pull people away.
conducive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what about the virtual? What about the virtual stuff?
I still do it if I'm asked. I don't love it because now everybody turns their screen off. We've done Zoom and Teams for so long now that people need to be, I think, in a different situation.
Yeah.
But I will, like I said, I'll do it because it's a way to access a lot of people really quickly. I did basically a lunch and learn. I guess it would be a lunch and learn last week, and it works almost better than it would have normally in an office with phones
Okay.
ringing. People are still at home, but people came on and said, I feel different. I feel great. I feel like I'm going to, my rest of the day is energized. So I think it almost works better virtually than sitting in an office in front of computers because
Okay,
at
yeah.
least you're by yourself with no distractions.
Yeah. And if it isn't in person, it has to be in like a room, like a separate space.
Yeah, separate space for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really love these insights, and because there's different niches that we have when we're thinking about communicating messages and helping people, and there's so many different ways. You've mentioned lunch and learns there, coaching, surgeries, keynotes, little sessions throughout an event, programs, workshops. There's just so many different ways in which things can be delivered that are fresh and new and dynamic and meet needs. So it's really great that you've shared those. Thank you for doing that. And for anybody wanting to find out more about Sarah, please do check out the show notes, because all the links to Sarah and how you can find her and the disco yoga stuff and all of that sort of thing will be linked in the show notes. But as always, I like to ask every guest that comes on, what words have changed your life?
This is the quote that I've loved since I was about 15. Don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what comes alive, and then go do that, because the world needs more people who have come alive.
Ah, Oh, let's break that down. Let's break that down. What does that mean to you?
Well, we think when we're, finishing high school or, I'm sorry, secondary school, that's my Canadian coming in. We think that we have to, okay, where is there going to be jobs? What industry is going to be hiring? Well, if it doesn't connect, if it doesn't bring you joy, then you're just going to be another sleepwalker. So again, when you come alive, I always think that sounds more exciting than like just USP, like what makes you, erupt from the inside out. Then that is going to elate the world. It's going to bring people into a state of joy as well, because it's almost like that magnetic, radiant feeling when people see, when you see people, often when people are falling in love with, there's that just 2 months of just absolute glory where, everything's untouchable, you get that walking on clouds thing, like I said earlier. That's the kind of stuff you need to bring into yourself when you create a passion, which should be, in my opinion, your life's work.
Absolutely. As you're talking about that, I'm really thinking about my own journey and how it's 10 years this month that I have been running my own business, and how that was very true, and also in the last few years, even following my joy in terms of my DJing and the things that light me up in my business and moving more towards those, and capitalizing on your strengths and the things that give you energy, the things that you could do all day long and never get bored, following those things. I'm really encouraging that in my kids. So my daughter in particular, she just loves editing anime films and like putting them all together and like chopping them up and then putting them on YouTube. And I'm like, just keep following that. So she's doing like an after school club that's focused around that. And as long as it's bringing her joy, just, keep following that thread and just see where it takes you, because that's how these things emerge, right?
Yeah, definitely. And we need to encourage that more. So well done.
Oh, thank you. For my son at the moment, it is roller skating, roller skating, roller skating, roller skating. Like he is so obsessed with that. I'm just like, well, cool,
Yeah,
let's just do it as much as you want or you can.
exactly. I was once working with a corporate lawyer, and he said to me, Sarah, I don't even know what happened. I used to want to do this, but now all I want to do is play the piano. Don't tell anybody. I'm obsessed with jazz piano, but I have to act a certain way. It's like, well, if that brings you joy, do it as much as you can. If you still have to work, find something. Because I think when I said that, go, well, you know what? I'm in this job. I can't just find something that brings me joy right now. I have a mortgage to pay, rent to pay. It's like, okay, if you can find other things along the
Yes.
side that bring you joy. So it's not like you have to drop everything and do
No.
something that brings you joy. It's like I call it joy spotting. Like even looking around the room right now, what brings me joy in this house? I remember you said that when I first sent you my edit of my keynote. You said, I was looking around the house going, that brings me joy. That brings me joy.
Yes,
That
it's
does. So
true.
you have to open your eyes in a different way.
Yeah,
And
that's
shift.
so true.
Usually we look around and we're like, oh gosh, that's dirty, or this
That
is
needs
messy.
painting.
That needs that. But it's like, okay, so again, sit up tall, take some deep breaths, or stand if you're outside walking right now listening to this, look around, look at the trees, look at the buildings, bring a sense of curiosity into it. Like imagine you've just landed on Earth right now and you're like in awe.
Curiosity, I think, is a really important word in all of this. If you're not sure what brings you joy, follow your curiosity.
Nice, I like it.
Get curious and follow that as a thread and see what lights you up, what makes you feel good. Is it baking? Is it sewing? Is it crocheting? Is it drawing? Is it painting? Is it debating something? Is it reading? Is it hiking up a hill? Whatever it might be. What's that thing that brings you joy? And I think that is a fantastic core message, a fantastic thought leader message, and a real true essence of who you are. So I think that's a great note to leave on. As I said, if you want to find out more about Sarah, please do check out the show notes. And Sarah, thank you so much for bringing joy to this episode.
Thanks, Helen.
Thanks for listening to Words That Change Lives. Please rate, review and follow on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcasts. It really means the world and helps me to reach more people so that we can all harness the power of our words and change lives for the better.